Hey, teeth lover, welcome to today's show, where it's actually going to be part one of a two-part series. I did an interview recently with a hygienist who's not only a hygienist, she's a stress management coach for other hygienists, and I am such a fangirl of her. I met her on Instagram. We've chatted numerous times, and it's always like hours and hours long. So for that reason, I'm splitting this up into a couple episodes. But I'm very passionate about what I do, as is she. Her name is Heather. I am not able to help my clients when it comes to, managing stress at work, maybe with their boss or their patient or whatever, or, signs of burnout. Like, this is a real issue and it's something that I can't help with, but I want to be able to share resources with my clients or potential clients or other hygienists that are listening, right? And just kind of give you all the tips and tricks and tools and everything you need to be successful at work and in life, mentally and physically, because they go hand in hand. And if I have a client or somebody wants to work with me who's, really, really stressed or, on the verge of burnout or whatnot, like, it does no good to talk about working out, right? Like, first and foremost, we have to make sure that our mental health is on point so that we can then work on our physical health. So without further ado, I'm going to get started with this interview and listen in, because she is going to give away so much value that I'm just super excited. So here we go. Hey there! Welcome to the Lift for Longevity podcast, where our goal is to build our strongest, healthiest body. We all deserve to feel our best, but since we only get one body, we have to make sure to protect it by moving safely and with purpose to prevent pain, injury, and surgery. I'm your host, Brianne, and I'm a fit pro turned business owner and also a girl mom. I'm obsessed with educating and empowering dental pros on how to take care of their body by training efficiently and building the right muscles to prolong their career. I know you're tired of spending time working out but still dealing with annoying aches and pains, getting rid of your pain temporarily only to have it come right back just a few hours later, or feeling like you never have any energy. You wish there was a long-term solution to get rid of your pain for good. Well, I'm here to give you real-life, actionable steps that you can take today to get rid of your pain, say goodbye to quick fixes, and have energy to live a life that you love. So if you're ready to get stronger, enjoy your life outside the operatory, and have longevity in your career, grab yourself a high-protein snack and let's get to it. So I am chatting today with Heather DeYoung, who I accidentally stumbled upon her on Instagram, and I immediately messaged her. I was so excited because she is a stress management coach for RDHs, because she's a RDH herself. And I was just I want to pick your brain and share all of your knowledge with my clients, because a lot of them deal with this, and this is something that I am not able to help with. So that's where your expertise comes in. So Heather,
Yes.
Let's do the thing, girl.
Hi, Brianne. Thanks for having me on hang out and chit chat today.
I just want to absorb everything that you say. So yeah.
Well, I think that, in the last few years, burnout has really become the forefront of our brains, right? Throughout the pandemic and whatnot, especially in hygiene, when we went back after we got the okay, we saw a lot of hygienists not come back to hygiene. We saw a lot of hygienists hitting burnout, and I ended up being one of those hygienists. So when we look at burnout, we have several different types of burnout. Academic burnout, even tech burnout, parenting burnout. But really, I want to talk about the professional burnout. My burnout story has many, many facets. When it comes to my professional burnout, when I went back after we got the okay during COVID, it was a lot of PPE. It was a lot of worry. Am I going to get sick? The flow of the office had changed and whatnot. And because there was a shortage of hygienists, I committed to doing some days of assisted hygiene. So running double columns with the help of an assistant, helping me flip rooms, take x-rays, and whatnot. At the same time, about a year after we went back, my husband and I stepped into being entrepreneurs. We started a business, and aside from working 3 days of hygiene that ran from like 6:30 in the morning until around 5:30 in the evening. I was also working about 14, 16-hour days on my days off of hygiene. So 4 days a week. I can recall one time I had to finish a project and I spent 35 out of the 48 hours working.
Oh my God.
I literally couldn't see straight.
Well, and this is what I hear from hygienists, like you're hustlers and
Yes,
almost to your own detriment. So like that's an example right there. Like that's insane.
definitely, definitely. So when we look at what burnout is in itself, it's actually a psychological syndrome of chronic stress. All right. So when we look at burnout, we need to really understand how we get to that place. And that has a lot to do with like the different stressors and whatnot. So first, when we look at burnout, we see like different signs and symptoms around that. It's fatigue, it's feeling depleted. But some of the sneakier signs, I guess, are what I really want to focus on. Things that I did not realize, and some things that I just kind of chalked up to getting older. I used to be very, very extroverted. This is point number one, withdrawing from social interactions, whether that's with family, friends, going to maybe a concert or something like that. Looking back, in hindsight's always 2020. 7 years ago, I can see myself becoming more introverted. I was turning 30. I thought, well, maybe this is just getting old, but let's be real, 30's not 30's not
No.
old. And I was looking back and it's like, okay, I thought that I was becoming more introverted because I was maturing as an adult. Maybe I was saying no to happy hours. I was prioritizing more sleep. But really, what it came down to was that I was feeling so depleted at work because we're talking to our patients. We're up on that pedestal all day long. We're having to communicate, explain things. Also, the dentist usually isn't the number one place that people really want to be. And you take that on yourself as well. I was just so depleted from talking to people throughout the day. I did not want to talk to anyone else. I didn't want to talk to my family. I didn't want to talk to my friends. I honestly just wanted to sit in a dark closet with the light off. I still have some of those days too. I think we all do. But the difference is knowing your limitations and knowing a healthy balance. And I got to the point with my burnout that the pendulum swung so hard the other way that I did not do anything social anymore. It was all about survival. Okay. So that's point number one to look for. Are you so depleted that you can't function in your personal life and do those things that really bring you the joy and that re-energizes you? Because then it becomes a cyclical thing and it's a downward spiral. The second one is anxiety. And I know anxiety so personally. I didn't think that I had anxiety beforehand, before I had a panic attack, and it took me out for months. But now that I understand what anxiety is, anxiety is the anticipation for the future. It's the what ifs. It's the lack of the ability to live in the present, right? That anxiety, I just thought was because I had hit burnout, but looking back, I had all of these different indicators of being anxious, thinking about work, after work, ruminating about work. My husband would say, you got to shut it down. It's 8:30 p.m. You've been home for 3 hours and you're still worked up about this, not being able to sleep disturbances. This all goes back to anxiety. I didn't realize that. Had I realized that, I could have taken the steps to get my anxiety under control. I could have built up that toolbox sooner. So when I did start to get those feelings that bubble up, the sweaty palms, the heart palpitations, usually we see an increase in absenteeism at work as well with anxiety. I could have prevented this cascade that really became my burnout journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
I guess my question for you is, a lot of people come home from pain, or excuse me, from work and they're in pain. So they're a little withdrawn. They're just lying on the couch. They don't have energy. So how do you differentiate what's normal, discomfort or normal physical fatigue versus like, I'm over my stress limit?
Right. That's a really good question. For that, it's a very, very individualistic thing. I view burnout, anxiety, stress management as a very individualistic thing because we're all very different people. We respond to different stressors and stimuli differently. There is a difference though with being tired and fatigued, but when that weekend comes, are you still tired and
Mm,
fatigued after that weekend? For me, I wasn't even able to show up for myself in the form of showering. This is really embarrassing, but I couldn't brush my teeth twice a day. Honestly, my burnout story made me become a much more empathetic clinician for my patients. I could never understand, how can you not brush your teeth twice a day? It's such an easy thing to do.
hmm
Not when you're in the depths of burnout. So it's important to know your limitations. It's important to know yourself and to really step back and have the ability to look at what your surroundings are, what's in your control, what's out of your control, and then gathering those tools so you can prevent, going from tired, fatigue, say you work Monday through Thursday,
hmm
and then to prevent you from being in bed Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There were days where I didn't get out of bed. There was a month, I think, straight that I didn't go outside other than to help maybe like bring some groceries in or something like that.
Wow.
Um, but that's the tricky part, right? Is like realizing when you're in that, is this true burnout or is this just fatigue?
hmm
To me, that's just it's a very personal, individualistic thing because you are the only person who understands your circumstances in your body. I encourage people to really hone in on how their body is reacting to things because in my journey, I ignored so many signs and I thought, this is normal. It's normal that, I sleep till 10 a.m. on Friday. It's normal that I have no motivation to work out. Is that normal? I think
hmm
in the dental hygiene world, it's considered normal, but that's also why we have such a high burnout in dental hygiene.
Right, because you're taking care of everybody else but yourself, essentially.
Right. So there's a term for that. It's called human giver syndrome.
Oh, I
And
have not heard that.
yes, I
Okay.
when I learned about human giver syndrome, I was like, lights were just like going off in my brain, like ding, 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 ding. Like, oh my gosh, they have a name for what I'm feeling. Like,
hmm
in like on a somatic level, it struck so many chords in me. Human giver syndrome is the idea that those who are in a giving field or profession, whether that's like a human, like a caregiver,
hmm
or we're talking medical professionals, dental dental professionals, dental hygiene assistants, dentists, whatever, is the idea that there are two different types of people. You have the human giver and the human being. The human being is expected to act accordingly to their environment. So, as the human being, as like the patient in a clinician's chair, they are there to have their teeth cleaned, whatever, or a restoration done. But they are on the receiving end. They get to
hmm
kind of dictate their level of comfort. Oh, I can't tip back enough, or can you do this? They're on the receiving end. But the human giver, they are expected to give of their bodies. So, comfort and dental hygiene, I think that you can definitely relate to that with your line of work.
hmm
You're expected to be pleasant, professional, happy, attractive. You're expected to give of yourself at the expense of the human being and what they want. When I read that for the first time, I stopped and I was like, oh, oh, oh,
Yeah.
yes, I feel this so deeply right now. And I think that that's a huge factor in dental hygiene. We talk all the time about establishing boundaries and whatnot.
Yes.
And that's so, so important. But so many things are out of your control. You can't control your circumstances that you're in. You can't control when patients show up. You can't control their attitude. So how do we kind of protect ourselves as the human giver? We set boundaries. But
Yeah.
how do we also protect ourselves outside the op too? And so like this is kind of where stress management comes into. I just want to tie up the last like sneaky burnout
Number
thing
3.
to number 3.
Yeah.
Physical symptoms. Physical symptoms.
Okay,
And
let's do it.
I've been a hygienist for 15 years. I've had pain, back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, wrist pain, whatever. Not necessarily talking about those symptoms specifically, I'm talking about chronic migraines. A lot of science has linked gut issues with chronic stress burnout. For me, I developed autoimmune issues about 7 years ago, but then looking back even further, they were actually developing even as a child. But more and more research is showing just how much chronic stress really wreaks havoc on the body. It shows us that when we look at cells, at the ends of cells, we have these telomeres, and telomeres are an indicator for longevity, for health. When we're under chronic stress, when we're under, we call it the red mind, the red head. When we're in this heightened state of fight and flight, when we're feeling anxiety, like we lose the ability to rationalize really well, to make good decisions. We're just really at that heightened state. Those telomeres shrink, and that's being directly linked to different chronic illnesses or aging illnesses. So, if you're experiencing these physical symptoms, for me, a lot of it related back to not having boundaries,
Yeah.
not taking a step back and letting off the gas pedal, really respecting where I was at as well. And in all of these things, I just didn't know. I just thought this was aging. I thought this was normal. I thought, well, yeah, I'm really busy. Of course I feel these things. They don't have to be your normal. They don't have to be the norm. They're not healthy. We
Totally.
have the ability to change up the script. We have the ability to change our physiology in our body. And that all ties in to the stress management. When we look at stress is actually a physiological response to a stimulus. That could be a thought, it could be a person, it could be an event, it could be even like a smell or a taste. And stress isn't necessarily bad, it's not necessarily good.
Positive and negative. Yeah.
Exactly. So when we talk about the redhead, that's typically more of like that fight flight. It's typically more of like the negative stress. But then we have this gradient that goes all the way down to blue. Okay. Blue is where your brain and your body is in that complete relaxed state. It's where the rejuvenation, the restoration happens. In the ideal state, we're in the green mind state, the green head, where our nervous system has the ability to turn on that red mindset. If we're in danger, right? Like our SNS keeps us alive. It keeps us out of danger. Our PNS, our parasympathetic nervous system, that's the rest and digest. That's the rejuvenation time. So if we can stay in that green mind state, that's the healthier one, where that SNS turns on, PNS is off. And then PNS turns on, SNS turns off. If we can stay in that green mind state, we're not seeing the shortening of the telomeres. We're not feeling that chronic stress on a physiological level. We're not heightening our cortisol levels and our adrenaline. The good hormones are taking over. So for me, in order to beat my burnout, I really had to get a hold of my stress management. I was so low in my burnout though, that it was like, I had no energy, I had no bandwidth, I had no capacity to do the things that I knew were going to help me. So when I speak with clients, when I work with them, my whole thing is one, when it comes to stress management, it's really important that you give yourself grace. Okay. You need to know your boundaries, you need to know your limits, but it's really important that you respect those. And also, I think guilt comes in to a big play. It's a big player. I feel guilty for being burnt out. Am I the only one who feels like this? It's a very isolating experience.
So I just love this conversation with Heather, and we are really just like at the tip of the iceberg here. So, there's a lot of indicators that you might be experiencing or you have experienced that you're neglecting, right? And so it's really important that we, make sure we don't avoid these things and really just kind of check in with ourselves on occasion to, make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. So the next episode, we're going to talk about more tips and tricks and tools, like tangible things that you can do. So stay tuned for that. But otherwise, I will go ahead and link Heather's information below if you want to contact her on Instagram at The Relaxed Hygienist. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week. Thank you so much for listening in today. I hope you got a takeaway from this episode. And if you did, would you be so kind to share it with another dental pro you think would benefit from it? I know you love learning, and chances are that they do too. Also, I would love to connect with you on Instagram, so go ahead and head over to the Lift for Longevity podcast page or follow me at Built by Brianne. If you shoot me a message saying hello, I will personally respond because I love chatting with dental pros. Before you go, though, I want to let you know that I appreciate you and what you do, and I hope to chat soon. Until next time, stay strong.